no role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, happy anniversary.
Man, this is crazy, bro. 5 years.
I've never done anything for 5 years. It really is surreal. It's the first time that I have felt this way about it since the first year. Like it was surreal when we hit 1 year, and then it didn't feel like it. And then at years 2, 3, and 4, it just kind of like, we acknowledged it on the show, but it just was like, okay, another year. 5 years is a long time to be doing something like this. If you look at, and I actually looked this up before this episode, and there's varying degrees of information. So there clearly is not, like some, Bible of this information, but the number of podcasts with any consistent interval of episodes that last for 5 years, where is less than 1/100th of 1%.
Wow.
And that makes sense. I mean, there are tens of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm sure a lot of people start one, they do one episode, and then those one-offs probably skew things. But still, that's a pretty amazing accomplishment. I'm proud of us.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot, man. It's been, I think, over time that we've done this, I get so many questions about, like, man, how do you find the time, and how do you do this, and how do you keep going? And it really, like, it really, for me, solidified my belief that if you want to do something like a creative endeavor like podcasting, because like there's podcasting, talking to a mic, sharing your opinion, yada yada, but then there's the commitment and the perseverance to keep going over all this time. And I really feel like I believe that it comes from a place of being deeply passionate about what it is that you're talking about, and then having the experience to continue the conversation, and having thoughts, opinions, and perspectives, because you're doing the actual thing that you're podcasting about. And I think that some of my favorite shows and podcasts over the years are exactly that. Like, people that are deeply passionate about what they talk about, but also have enough perspective and experience to continue elevating the dialogue, or pivoting from one thing to another, but maintaining the stories and the examples that keep people interested. So it still amazes me to this day. Like, we posted something the other day about it that a college had highlighted us as a top leadership podcast.
Right. Yeah.
And it just blows my mind that people are still finding us for the first time. Is kind of cool. Knowing that we have like on paper 640 episodes, I think, at this point, to the point where we had to start our Saturdays of just like highlighting episodes that we found over the years that people continue to talk about and share. It's just it's been an amazing journey, and I still enjoy it. Still a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Is you say you have to have the perseverance and the commitment, and you have to have the stories and the experience. But there's something else I'll add to that too. You also have to not care if people listen or not. You have to like it enough to do it, even if no one was listening. And I don't know that I would do it as often as we do it if truly no one was listening. So there is an element of like a sense of responsibility to the listeners who expect to be able to wake up on Monday mornings and know that it's going to be there. And I don't want to let those people down when we do these things. But there is absolutely, it'd be really hard to do anything for this long and for this many hours if you wouldn't do it regardless of who was listening. It has to be for the love of it, and for the learnings of it, and for the posterity, not just for being able to say, let's see how many downloads we got this week or something like that. So, it's kind of like if you do something because the goal is the downloads, there's no way you'll love that thing enough in order to keep it going. At least once a month, someone will reach out and ask about podcasting to me. Like, how I want to get started. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. What advice do you have? That kind of stuff. And the very first thing I'll ask them is, why did you pick this topic? And if they said, well, I love talking about this stuff. Like this is what I love. Then it's like, good. That's all I care about. If you love it, then let's do this. I'll give you whatever advice you want. If the answer is, I was looking at like the top 100 iTunes charts, and it seemed like this topic isn't really on there, and I could maybe like slide into this little niche space right here. It's like, nope, you're done. You're already done, because you don't love that thing enough to do it when you inevitably have no listeners for the first year. Right. And to be able to keep it going for that. So there's just no point. You have to love it. And I do love talking about this stuff. And I feel like I'm learning a lot from just revisiting the mistakes that I made along my journey that I, reflected on at the time and then never thought about again. And then we talk about it in an episode, we come up with a topic, and I start thinking back into the Rolodex of the mistakes and successes and failures and all those things. And I'll find things that happened that I hadn't really considered for a while, and I dig into them again and think about it from a different perspective, and I will find new learnings for myself in terms of the mistakes that I made 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or last month.
Yeah, no, it's great. And, I think it's just the amount of messages that we get, and I think people that talk about the podcast, like I just got one yesterday, via LinkedIn message, and somebody just said, I really enjoyed the Thoughtful Thursday episode. And then I responded, and we had some dialogue around, we talked about on that episode, like the responsibility that leaders have and people leaving companies and what you can control and how you make people feel, right? And just that constant element of engagement and dialogue and conversation, I enjoy that so much. Like that's what keeps me kind of committed to doing what we can to keep the show going, is knowing that there are people and leaders out there that not only enjoy the content, but will reach out and will share stories and will celebrate promotions and will provide us with topics or questions or things like that. It's just super cool. Like it's a cool feeling to think that we play some small part in helping somebody who's either looking to better their own leadership or looking for guidance, outside of whatever situation that they're in. But like for me, I think that's probably the most fulfilling part of it, and I think that's what's unique about this show and our topic on leadership, and just being driven by passion. It's such a fulfilling element. So it's a little bit selfish, for me anyway, just to, I get my my cup filled constantly with people that I work with and people that I, help develop and things like that. But this is just another way of having a larger impact outside of the day to day. And for that, like, I really appreciate it. But it's still, you and I talk about it all the time. It's still like, it still feels weird to just think about the success of the show and the amount of downloads and the amount of people that talk about it and things like that. We're grateful and appreciative, but it's still weird.
So we're somewhere between 3 and 4 million downloads is where we're at right now. For all episodes combined, all platforms combined, and it's a big range, obviously. But you look at some of the biggest podcasting names out there who get, they get 3 to 4 million downloads an episode.
An episode,
yeah. And it you can kind of very quickly seem like, oh, maybe that's not that good. But there's also tens of thousands of podcasts out there who get 3. They get 3 per episode, and 2 of the 3 are the host and co-host.
Or like our first episode.
Right.
Our first episode was 12.
Right, that's right. 12 downloads. And I was really happy when I saw that, because I expected it to be 2, you and I.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to force my wife to download on her phone too. There's our third.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when there was 12 people, I was like, oh, wait a minute, like 9 people heard that train wreck besides us and our wives,
Yeah.
And then in posting the best of series, which is basically I'm just going back and looking at the episodes that kind of spiked higher than other ones around it, like a topic that kind of struck a chord with people, and I'm posting those as people ask about which one should I listen to going back, because I don't have time to listen to 600 episodes, and I'll pick up kind of a special one each Saturday, and in going back I'll listen to them again when I'm posting them. And it's funny, I think we've gotten better from a production quality standpoint, from the ability to not use as many filler words. We've gotten more concise. Like there's definitely an increase in quality, but I think the learnings and the messaging and the transparency around the struggles we've had, that has been there from the very, very beginning. And when you go back and listen to older episodes, it's one thing that I hear if I can, get past the way I sound or the way that I judge myself for the way I sound in those older episodes, and I can look at the actual stories and the learnings from it. They're just as relevant today, and I love listening to it from that perspective. So a lot of these learnings are pretty timeless, because they have to do with just how people interact with each other, and they have to do with what employees are looking for when it comes to their employer and when it comes to their direct boss. What are they looking for? And transparency over the years, and social media, and the fact that leaving a company after only a couple years doesn't hurt you as much as it used to hurt you 25 years ago. All those things are contributing to a better work environment. But the fact that people kind of still want the same things today that they wanted 50 years ago when it comes to their job, that helps too, because those wants are, I don't think they're going to change the entire time we're in the workforce.
Yeah, and I think too, I think back on there's been a handful of episodes that we've done where people have reached out afterward and provided us with either, you call it feedback or perspective, or challenged kind of
right.
what we discussed or what we said. And those were tremendous learning moments for us in the show, as we think about that, and as we think about how do we make sure that we are providing content that is very authentic to us and how we think and what we've experienced and our perspective on things, but also that it's always evolving, and that we're gaining something from our listeners. And being able to come back onto the shows that we've done and said, hey, I think there was an episode that we titled called we got some feedback,
right?
And we talked about it. We talked about what that is and what that means to us and how we appreciated that, what we learned from it and what we wanted to change, going forward. And like yes, I think that those moments for me are just so aligned with what you learn as a leader, and as you make mistakes and as you have to make adjustments. I think those are things as well that I've really enjoyed, and I think listening back to some of the episodes over 5 years now, you're talking about a good half the show pre-pandemic, half the show post-pandemic or during pandemic, and just evolving even. What's expected of leaders today, and what are those skills and what are those competence and what is the things that as we started in the very first episode and we talked about, we've never done a great job at helping our leaders become better leaders, right? And that's the workforce, that's almost a demand now from a lot of people and a lot of teams, and I think that I'm all for it. I am all for continuing to raise the bar and making sure that leaders fulfill that need of inspiring, motivating, and developing their people.
Even today, a lot of leaders are kind of thrown into the deep end and expected to kind of figure it out. And some of them do, and they become fantastic. And some of them are really terrible at it, and they burn out and they leave. But where it really hurts people is when it's neither. When they don't thrive at it and they don't get great at it, but they also don't burn out and leave. They're just kind of mediocre. They're just kind of there, and they fill a space, and they don't do anything wrong. They could be very nice people too, but they're not developing people underneath them, and they're not owning the role of a leader from the standpoint of helping their people grow, helping their people develop, helping their people get to where they want to be. And though that's the kind of insidious nature of where leadership failures hurt the workforce as a whole, is not when they're bad leaders, it's when they're ineffective leaders, because they kind of fly under the radar, and not even intentionally. They fly under the radar because they don't want to poke their head up, because they're terrified of being figured out that they aren't great leaders. And the reason they're not great leaders is because no one ever told them how to be great leaders. And so in a lot of cases, it's not even their fault. And so when we started this, it was from the standpoint of those people, the ones who have the heart to do it. They already want to succeed. They want to help their people succeed. They want to help develop their people. They understand the role of the leader is this, and they just don't know how to do it. Because if you start with a group of people who believe that it's their role and they just don't know how to do it, I will take that problem any day over a group of people who just don't even think that's their job, that their job is to deliver a performance result regardless of what the fallout is. And so I really like when we get feedback from people that validate that belief in myself, that validate me thinking that, you know what, there are a lot of great people out there. No matter how many horror stories I hear, for every one of those, there's 100 people out there who they don't necessarily love their leader, but they can at least have the empathy to understand that their leader is maybe struggling to stay afloat just like they are.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And I think to me, everything is the people business. And we have talked so many times just about connection with people and understanding and gaining perspective and treating people with respect and humanity and all the things that build trusts in relationships over time. And like to your point earlier, these are things that never change, I firmly believe. And I think that just being able to know that there are people out there that are committing their time to listen to you and I, talk about any topic in leadership and share our thoughts, and just knowing that there are people that are following and downloading the show and listening week in and week out. That to me just it builds confidence. It builds confidence that there really are some amazing people out there that, just like us, are passionate about learning, are passionate about being better versions of ourselves, are passionate about consuming content that can be helpful, and for that I just want to say thank you.
I absolutely agree. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 minute hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
The 1 minute hack.
Okay, for this episode's 1 minute hack, here's what I want you to do. Get out your pen and paper, like we do here on Hacking Your Leadership, and write down the words, thank you. Thank you for not only supporting the show, but thank you for investing in yourself. Take the time to pause and thank yourself for things like this and times like this when you are committed to doing something. You could be doing a lot of other things right now, but the simple fact that you are listening to the words coming out of my mouth right now means that you are taking the time to either support, the show, or to better yourself, or to find balance, or to find validation, whatever that is. But seriously, just write down thank you and take the moment to thank yourself for this time. I think it's such an important thing. We're really big on trying to give leaders their flowers, and these are your flowers. And if we know you, thank you. And if we don't know you, thank you as well. But thank yourself and receive those flowers, because it takes a commitment to spend your time in self-awareness and self-reflection and self-accountability. And you deserve this moment, and we appreciate you, and we'd love to hear from you. And please, we say it all the time on the show, and I know it's like a broken record. Reach out to us via Instagram, email us, text us on the community text line that we have. We would love to engage with you, get to know you, see who you are, and offer any level of support within the podcast, or even just having dialogue and meeting new people in our network. We're wide open for that. So again, thank you, and we appreciate all of your support and your listenership.
Yeah, it's a great 1 minute hack. I just want to make sure we caveat that with, 2023 is going to be the year where we blow up and get to Corolla Rogan style, where we're selling amphitheaters. So we may not be as responsive in 2023 to our Instagram messages by then. But as of right now, we're open. We're open. So go ahead and send those messages, and
exactly.
and we will respond back to everybody.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you for 5 years of hacking your leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.